Hey guys, welcome to your first mystery podcast. How are you doing today, David?
I'm doing pretty good, Caleb. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited for this new format that we've got going on.
Yeah, me too, dude. I can't wait to hear what it's all about.
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, basically we're doing this new podcast format where we're doing a cool mystery topic each week, and David and I are going to alternate weeks doing it. This week, the first week is my week, obviously, because David never does the hard things in this podcast, of course.
True.
So yeah,
Dude, I'm the social media guy. What can I say?
yeah, and I picked an amazing topic for us today that kind of has been blowing my mind recently, and it is savant syndrome. Have you ever heard of savant syndrome, David?
Yeah, yeah. I remember you were telling me about this last week, I think.
Yeah, because this is what sparked my interest in this topic is I saw that amazing video, but we'll get to that later. Um, yeah, so we're just gonna be chilling and have a conversation about this. David does not know much about savant syndrome, so I have done a deep dive into the history of savant syndrome, and we're going to learn together what it's like to be an idiot savant.
Can't wait, dude.
Amazing.
Sometimes I think, honestly, I'm a savant.
I think you are too sometimes, man, and I don't really know how to explain it, but there's just something about you, and I feel like given your deficits, like it just seems the most likely. Anyway, so we'll see
Alright.
why that might be true. So, for anyone who doesn't know, savant syndrome is a rare condition where a person has an incredible memory coupled with an obsession with a certain subject. So, like, basically, someone will be mentally retarded and they can't talk, but they'll be like so fucking genius at like the calendar, for example. So like if you ask them what day of the week was January 3rd 1954, they'll instantly know because they have like a categorical memory of the entire history of the world. Or like you ask them how to get to a certain place, and they'll tell you the exact directions on the map down to the street in any city in the US no matter what, because they've memorized every street in the US. Like it's incredible what these people can, and those like it's insane. Like I know you've probably heard of this, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. I thought like people who were savants were mostly autistic. Is that not true?
Yeah, actually that is true. Almost all of them are.
Is autism like a is a I know it's like a spectrum, but like you can be down like you can have Down syndrome and also have autism, right?
Yes, you can. Down syndrome is a different disease than autism, but they often they manifest in the same ways, like learning delays. Often Down
Mm.
syndrome has a more obvious like physical deficit, like such as like a cleft lip is pretty common in kids with Down syndrome, as well as just like having a like far apart eyes and like a large nose, and like there's certain like facial features that Down syndrome children have as well. Which kind of differentiates it from autism a little bit.
Mm.
And also, Down syndrome is present at birth, whereas autism can actually manifest later on in their life.
Oh
But
shit, bro.
it's interesting that you say that because it is highly connected with autism, and like those places, those little spots where they're really smart, researchers call those islands of genius, aka the areas in which the person has incredible knowledge and skill. The most famous portrayal of a savant is obviously Rain Man. Have you ever heard of Rain Man pilot?
No, wait, is that the guy who did the chocolate rain or no?
No, no. Rain Man is a famous savant from a movie where basically he plays this guy who is like a genius who knows everything and like is able to memorize books no matter what. But the crazy thing is, it's actually based on a true story. In the movie, his name's Raymond Babbitt, but in real life, this guy's actually like a 60-year-old guy. He's memorized over 6,000 books. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of geography, music, literature, history, sports, and like 10 fucking other things. He can name all of the US area codes and major city zip codes. He's memorized the maps in front of the telephone book and can tell you precisely how to get from one US city to another. He also has calendar calculating abilities, and more recently, he has like a fucking musical talent that he just suddenly is a genius in music as well. But the craziest fucking thing about him is the fact that he can literally take a book and with his left eye on one page and his right eye on the other page, he can literally read both pages at the same time. It
The
is the
fuck,
most.
dude?
I've seen a video of it. It is the most insane thing I've ever seen. And in this case, he had an MRI on his brain, and it showed that his corpus callosum was missing and his central nervous system was very damaged. The corpus callosum is the part of your brain that connects the two hemispheres. So yeah, and it's interesting because in a lot of cases savants have that problem. Their corpus callosum is missing or it's damaged or something along those lines, and their central nervous system is always damaged no matter what. In a savant, their central nervous system has to be damaged. That's a requirement for the disease. I mean, it's just I don't know how it works, but it makes me think though that, if the corpus callosum being gone is what allows them to have this crazy ability, what if we could just do that to ourselves?
Right, and like make ourselves savants.
Yeah.
Like anything, like a savant, like Counter-Strike player.
Yeah, because like I was reading this article and basically they're saying that yeah, it's possible to train savants as well. So like you can have a learned savant where they get taught a skill and they're extremely good at it, or like they learn it by themselves or whatever the fact, but like they can learn really complex things. A lot of savants are like obsessed with things that are totally benign, like like train schedules or like fucking like maps or some other bullshit like that, something that doesn't really matter. But then there's some savants that are like obsessed with medicine or something. Like, have you ever seen The Good Doctor?
No, I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's an example. It's obviously fiction, but it's an example of like a learned savant where he's learned medicine and he has savant-like knowledge of medicine. But his autism kind of impedes his like social abilities. You know what I mean?
Will they let someone who has autism become a doctor, like in real life?
It depends on the level on the spectrum they are. Like if they're totally, debilitated by their autism, chances are they probably wouldn't be cognitively able to become a doctor in the first place. But even if they somehow did, their ability to be a doctor would be pretty limited, I think, because patient relationship is part of being a doctor. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Among savants, the most common arrangement of skills is basically like this. Most likely they're blind, most likely they're mentally handicapped, and then the most common skill that they have is musical genius when they're blind and mentally handicapped. And that got me thinking, like, it's kind of weird that most people with savant syndrome who are blind also become musical geniuses. But then I thought about it some more, and actually I don't think it is that weird, because like if you are a savant and you have amazing memory and like amazing brain power, but you can't see anything, then the most obvious, most intuitive thing that you would like start to hone in on would be the things that you hear, right? Because it's not like you can hone in on things that you smell or things that you touch. So things that you hear, because music is just math, but like in audio form, you know what I mean? So like if your brain is like able to make those connections like that, it makes sense that music would be the next thing you go to.
Do you think a savant can like pick up any instrument and just like fucking jam out, or?
Yeah, they can. The most common instrument that they play is piano, and but I mean it's crazy because it's not the fact that they're able to play the instrument super well. It's just the fact that they always have perfect pitch. They're able to identify musical notes with perfect pitch no matter what. They're able to like understand musical theory, but not through like an artistic way, just through like a mathematical way. They just have some understanding of it that is on a different level. It's so insane to look at. There's plenty of videos on the internet that you can look up of musical savants, and oftentimes they're like so mentally retarded that they literally can't have a conversation with you, but they're just so beautifully prolific on an instrument. It's insane to see that juxtaposition, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder if the split brain has to do anything with, because people are like, left brain is like, very logical, and like that's where you do like all your fucking like math and shit, and like right brain is like you're very like creative and like artsy, and like it's like how you like use your right brain like when you're drawing and shit like that.
Right, yeah, actually that's a really, really good point, because in this study they would basically take a patient and they would sit them down, and basically what they would do is they put a screen on their like in front of their nose, so one eye is looking at one part of the screen, one eye is looking at the other part, and basically what they would do, this is in a patient who has the missing corpus callosum, so his brain, his left brain can't communicate with his right brain, so basically his head has two separate brains in it, and they can't talk to each other like a normal brain does. So what they'll do is they'll flash like the word lemon in front of his right eye, and like he'll see it and then it'll go away. And then he'll say, like, the researchers will ask him, like, what word did we show you? And he won't know because his right eye saw it and his left brain, like, is not the part of the brain that interprets the words. So therefore he wasn't able to understand it. But then the most fucking mind-blowing, craziest part is if you put him on a table in front of a piece of paper and a pen, he can draw a picture of what the word said, even though he never saw it or he never read it. Because in reality, his right brain did see it. It just wasn't able to process it into words. It wasn't able to process it into an abstract idea. But it was able to translate it into physical drawing because that's the part of the brain that does that. So it's crazy. It's like there's two people living in the same head and they can't talk to each other. It's one of the most insane things I've ever seen, Pilot. And that's what allows them to read like both pages of a book at once is because of that. Is because on one hand they look at one with their right eye, one with their left eye, and since their brain isn't communicating with itself, it's able to process them individually. It's so crazy to think about.
That's so crazy. Like I could even imagine like reading a book like the same like because it wouldn't make sense like at all because you're trying to read both fucking like sentences,
right?
And it's not chronological.
It's just not possible. Like it's not humanly possible. It's not how our brains work. And like it makes me think like what if you could do that to yourself? Do you think you would?
I could make myself a savant.
Yeah, but you'd have to take all the negative aspects of it as well.
Yeah, and like by like splitting my brain and like being blind and shit.
Well, no, let's say you're not blind. Not all savants are blind. It's just
like,
it's common that they are.
A savant, and I have like the split brain shit. I don't think
right.
I could.
Really? I don't know. I could see myself do like I wouldn't do it just now. Like just cut my corpus callosum. I wouldn't do that, obviously.
Because like I've been saying this for a while, but I haven't said on the podcast yet. But like when I get tired, I close my right eye, and my left eye is open. Like a lot of the time.
That's weird.
And like so my vision in my left eye is worse than my right eye.
Huh.
So, like if I had that, like I literally just like wouldn't be able to function when I'm tired.
That's kind of crazy. I don't know. I definitely wouldn't do it now, but like in the future, if they had some kind of weird thing where they could do it but not give you all the negative like aspects of it,
yeah, for sure. Of course, I would want to become a professional like at an instrument without having to like learn anything.
It makes me really think about what they thought about savants before modern medicine, because it must have been crazy to like see some people who were literally like retarded, or at that time they would call them like an idiot or a moron or whatever. But then like somehow they were geniuses at something. Like I'm sure at that time it was like playing the lute.
I'm sure back in the day they'd they'd make sure like they wouldn't be able to do amazing stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been really easy to get burned at the stake if you happened to be a savant in another fucking era.
Or have Down syndrome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they probably wouldn't have just killed them. Like they would have just killed the babies. Like if they had something like Down syndrome, because you can just obviously see it. Yeah. That's crazy.
Most of the time they're not sterile either, so
right, yeah.
Like they have kids.
Yeah. True. Yeah, that made me think about that made me research the first account of savant syndrome, because I was wondering when they actually discovered it. It actually appeared in a German psychology journal in 1783, so it was a long time ago, but not that long ago. And Jebediah Buxton was the guy who they were describing. He was basically like a mathematics genius with a perfect memory, who was able to just like solve equations instantly with no help and no formal training. And like at the time they had no idea what it was, and but we now know they were describing a savant. Famously, he was able, like the researcher named Fuller asked him how many seconds a man who was 70 years old, 17 days and 12 hours old was. And he answered, I don't know how to say this number, but it's 22105000800, and it only took him like a minute to come up with that.
Insane. Yeah. Like, a lot of math is like equations and formulas.
Yeah.
So like I don't know how they like process that in their brain so quickly.
Yeah.
And like just gives you an answer. It reminds me of The Cube. You've seen that movie, right? Where,
yeah.
The guy's like a savant and he can like do the equations like instantly. He's like, oh yeah, that's the right answer. You're safe. It's like, holy shit, dude. Like,
yeah, like how he's just totally functionally retarded, but he's somehow a genius in math. It makes me think about people like Albert Einstein. You know what I mean? Like, famously, like when they did an autopsy on Einstein's brain, right? Like it was different than normal brains. So like it makes me think of it makes me wonder if like a lot of crazy inventions and like people who made great strides in science, I wonder if maybe they had some kind of brain thing that made them able to make these connections. And like whenever you're able to learn it in school, it's not so bad, but whenever you're actually discovering something, it's like I feel like it takes a certain kind of person to make that kind of connection, especially in the case of Einstein. Like that was just so monumental that it makes me think, yeah, his brain was probably different than ours.
Yeah, I kind of don't understand it too, cause like how do you like not have to have like any prior learning and like come up with these numbers? It like is math just like a universal like constant? Like does math is like math an actual like universal thing,
Yeah, well, it's not that
or
they
is it
have no
something?
training. It's just that they train themselves through like unconventional ways. Like for example, the people who learn art, like artistic savants, will like rather than learn art by going to art school, they learn art through unconventional means. Like I don't know, they do their own art, but it's like impressionist art that is very like mechanical. It's not like they're not doing it in an artistic way. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like they teach themselves because of their ability to make these connections instantly, unlike everyone else. So they don't really need formal training. But then the thing is, like some savants can be formally trained. Like some people are able to be savants, and if they're like on the higher functioning end of the autistic spectrum, they're able to still function in society and also retain their abilities as a savant. And like that's how Rain Man is. Like he's largely able to function in society. Like yeah, he's autistic and functionally he's not as good as everyone else socially, but he's still able to function in society and be a fucking savant. So he got a lucky draw there.
Yeah, I know like people who have autism like they can perform in social situations. Is it something they can like learn and like
Yes, it is.
improve,
Yeah,
or
and
is it always
that's
just bad?
no, a lot of people don't know that, but yes, it is something that they can learn because the real thing about autism is not the fact it's not that they don't feel emotions. It's that they a lot of times lack the ability to read other people's emotions, so they can sometimes seem like rude or they don't understand social cues. It's because they don't. But you can teach that to them, and even though they don't make those connections automatically in their brain, once they learn them, they can learn to recognize them. So yeah, autistic people, if they're high functioning, absolutely they can learn social cues and they can function totally normally in society. And a lot
Yeah,
of
I've
people
noticed
don't know
that in
that.
my friend. I have a friend who has autism. His name was Brett. Like, and I remember when I first started like playing with him and like talking to him, it was obvious. It was like obvious that he had autism. But like he went to like this school, I guess, where like autistic people went to like train on social stuff and stuff like that. And like he came out like 100% better than like he came out than before he was went to that school in Georgia. It's kind of crazy actually. I was like, bro, Brett, like you're way more like proper, like you actually know how to talk and shit like that.
Yeah, yeah, because they have very specific ways that they've learned throughout the years to teach people with developmental delays how to function in society. It's really amazing. That's what my mom did while I was growing up. She works with people like that, teaches them those skills. And yeah, I mean, it's really amazing what they're able to do, even to people that have like 25 IQ. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
literally able to make them be able to live by themselves a lot of times, like when possible, because of this amazing training that they do. So it's really great. Savant syndrome is way more common than I originally expected as well, by the way. It's
Really?
rare, but 1 in 10 autistic people show some level of savant skills. Not necessarily like a genius, but like they're oftentimes obsessed with something and they tend to like obsessively do that thing. And like, yeah, that is partially part of a savant like skills. So yeah, that not necessarily to the level of Rain Man, but yeah, it's very common. 1 in 10 or 10%. It's not very common, but 1 in 10 is much more common than I fucking expected.
Dude, our friend Justin might be like a coding savant.
Dude, you're right. He is a savant, and that's why his social skills are so. I'm just kidding. I love you,
It's
Justin.
bullying.
I'm
Justin,
just
if you're
kidding.
listening, we love you, man.
Yeah, we love you. Anyway, so whatever the exact number is, mental retardation and other forms of developmental disabilities are more common than autistic disorder. So a reasonable estimate might be that about 50% of people with savant syndrome have autism and 50% have some other kind of like central nervous system damage or injury or whatever. So not all autistic people are savants, but not all savants are autistic. They can have some other central nervous system damage as well. And also, interestingly, men are much, much more likely to become savants. And I was kind of shocked by this, but the reason they think is that basically whenever the fetus is developing, whenever the testosterone in the male fetus is like coursing through the fucking veins, it has something to do with like how your one side of your brain develops. And because testosterone is more highly concentrated in males, they think that affects the prevalence of autism in general, let alone savant syndrome in men, and that's why women are much more likely to get it. That's what they think. This is still pretty new though, so I'm not sure if this is like settled science. I don't really know enough about like fucking autism and the history of it to know how convincing this is. So I'm just gonna say I think it's convincing. It's interesting. It's an interesting connection it seems to explain it. But like I said, I'm not a doctor, so I have no idea.
A question I would like to ask a savant is like if they're like a person who's like high on the autism spectrum and like has like a lot of disabilities, but like let's say they're really good at the violin, like they're so good at the violin they've made a career for themselves playing the violin.
Right.
Would they give that up to live a normal life?
That is a really good question. I have no idea.
And in that there might be a chance where they can't play the violin anymore because they're not savant anymore.
That's actually really interesting that you mentioned that, because there is this one woman called I think her name was Daria or something, Danya or something. Anyway, this woman D, she was a savant when she was a child, but then she went to a school. She was an artistic savant who was amazing at art. And she went to a school like we were talking about earlier that's supposed to train her to do better in the regular world. And she lost her savant abilities and she was never able to gain them back. And she often, she was like recorded saying like she regretted it because she gave up that huge part of her life. But she was happy that she was able to live a more normal life, but she like spent the rest of her life trying to regain that skill that she lost. Which is really like kind of sad, but also interesting that they were able to cure, like quote unquote cure her, like just through basically cognitive therapy, which is effectively what education is in a way. That's really weird to me. But that's common actually. That's not the only person that's happened to. Oftentimes they lose not often, but sometimes they lose their savant abilities.
I wonder if it's like just the way their brain like thinks and like see, they have a special like thinking strategy that is just like lost in like the way we usually like carry out like mathematics and like how we think out. Like they don't think 1 2 3. They think like 4 5 22 3 1.
Right, some way we can't comprehend.
Yeah, and like that's how they have their like savant skills.
Yeah, maybe. And then maybe by teaching them our system, they lose the original, like more efficient system because they've gained our system instead. That's an interesting thought. That would be crazy, right?
Yeah, that would be. I don't know how I would feel. I think I'd be sad that like I lost this special skill I had, but I would also be happy that I can like function around people normally.
Yeah, I don't know what's better, to be honest. It would be a hard choice for me, but I digress. Some people have like crazy language skills too, and like unusual ability to smell, unusual ability to see or feel things as well, and also synesthesia. Yeah, see colors, exactly. Synesthesia. That's what that is. And like
smell colors.
Yeah, smell colors or like see sounds or something like that. Yeah.
Like see the color of notes and like music notes and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Crazy. I wish I had synesthesia.
Yeah, that is a really insane ability. I can't even imagine what it's like, really. Like, some people taste music. What the fuck is that like, dude? I think about that a lot, actually.
Or, like, they taste colors. Like, yeah, red is, like, it's very sour. It's like,
yeah, it's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, it would be so, like, apparently, I was, like, watching a video of someone who has synesthesia for, like, then they, like, played the violin. And it's, like, how they learned to use, like, seeing notes and stuff like that to play the violin. So, like, they're like, all right, so if I do red, blue, green, it's going to play this. So, right. Like, they use it to their advantage, which is, like, super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about maybe, like, the fact that because some savants lose their abilities when they're schooled, like, when they go to traditional schooling, what do you think about maybe saying, well, if we know someone's a savant, maybe we don't do the traditional schooling. Maybe we allow their talents to, like, flourish. Maybe. What do you think that's right, or do you think it's better to school them in the traditional way?
Honestly, I don't know. It'd probably be up to like their caretaker, because like I
Right.
don't know, like if you can ask the savant, hey, do you want to, like act normally? I don't know if they would understand that.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's a tough question. I would want the savant to like be able to decide that for themselves though, if possible.
Yeah, definitely, if possible, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think I lean more towards the side of like just let them go. Like not necessarily like if you should do what you can to make their life happy and high quality, but like I almost feel like that ability is in a way almost what defines them. And um I think that they're not ashamed of that. Like I wouldn't be ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of my abilities that I have in my person now. They're not nearly as impressive as the ones that these people have. So like I think that we take pride in our abilities, and I would be very disappointed if like I suddenly couldn't do the thing that I love the most, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
or if I suddenly lost a lot of skill in it. It's just through no fault of my own. I don't know. That's something that I think is really kind of weird. And I think that our
Yeah.
society is not accepting of these people at all because they see them as kind of creepy and kind of like they're weird, of course, because they're autistic, but they're also weird because they're obsessed with like whatever it is that they're savants of, and I think society really looks down on them because of that as well.
Yeah, I think people don't like people who have autism because they don't understand social cues, and that's like super important, obviously, in society. Like you gotta understand, like this isn't okay. This is okay to do.
Right.
Like they may be like super good at the violin, but like you can't just jerk off in public.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's fucked up, but you're not wrong. I mean it is sad though because they're like so close to having a normal life with an amazing ability. It's just
Yeah,
like it seems like they can't have both because I don't know, I guess God hates us.
or it's how their brain works and it's like wired.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
I have an amazing, sad, heartbreaking story to cap off this podcast about a savant from our lovely country of the US of A, David.
All right, let me
And
get out my tissues then.
yes, get your tissues out and prepare all your cavities because this is really sad. This guy's name is Darius McCollum. He is a savant. Since he was a kid, he was basically obsessed with trains. When he was an infant, his mother would often take him on the subway to calm him, much like other parents take their infants for car rides to rock them to sleep. And by the age of 5, Darius had already memorized the entire New York City subway system.
Holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. His knowledge of every single stop and route and every train was like totally flawless. He was fascinated by all aspects of the system. He was totally infatuated, and it was literally like the only thing that would calm him down whenever he was whenever he was a kid. And like of course kids with autism are oftentimes like really really hard to deal with because
But you said at 5 years old?
yeah, when he was 5 years old he had all of that
Holy
memorized.
shit, dude! I left New York at 5 years old, and I don't remember a single thing about the trains. I knew I rode them,
Yeah.
but like I don't know any stops or shit like that
Yeah,
anymore.
crazy, right? Yeah. And but the weird part is like despite his genius knowledge of the New York City transit system, he got really bad grades in school. In second grade, he was placed in special ed, and he struggled with like making friends with his classmates. And his schoolwork wasn't really hard, but all he wanted to do was fuck around with trains and buses and large engines and shit. So one day at school, Darius was 12 years old, and it was snowing really hard. It was like a blizzard, and his school was not canceled, but only two people made it to class. It was just him and one other guy. Basically, the teacher gave them each a puzzle and just left the room. And while she was gone, the other student that was there with Darius, while Darius was hunched over his puzzle deep into his assignment, the other student went to the teacher's desk and removed a pair of scissors. He snuck up behind Darius and plunged the scissors into his back, repeatedly opening and closing the
No.
scissors. Darius was bleeding on the floor of the classroom when the teacher returned. Due to the snow, the ambulance was delayed, and Darius laid in a pool of his own blood, unconscious.
What the fuck, dude? Are
Yeah.
you
Fucked
serious?
up.
This,
Yes.
why? Why would the teacher even leave the room?
Why would the kid even stab him? I don't get it.
Well, he has like Down syndrome, And I know like kids at a young age, you know, like I think it starts at like 5 years old when they first start to realize like their actions have consequences. So like, you know, young kids will like, you know, hit a dog or something like that
Right.
and not realize, you know, they're hurting the dog. So like, you know, for people who have, you know, mental disabilities, you know, that obviously might never process in their brain.
I mean, true, but who stabs
Yeah,
somebody? I never stabbed anybody. I mean, I did shit that I was like probably a shitty asshole thing to do, but fuck, man, I never stabbed anyone. What the fuck?
yeah, that is fucking. What happened to the kid who killed him?
I have no idea, actually. It doesn't say. I guess because he's a minor.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
Jeez.
Darius was in the hospital for over 2 weeks and had to have 2 surgeries because he had a punctured lung. Both lungs punctured.
What the fuck?
From that moment on, he obviously...
Dude, and you know they have like crazy strength too, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Wait, what?
like, they'll get, because you know how there's like, you know, the wranglers for the special ed kids.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
They have like super strength, dude.
They don't have super strength, they just don't know restraint. So they like literally let loose every single time. That's the only problem. Like, because they don't know how to control their own strength. That's basically the thing. Yeah, but like he literally had to have 2 surgeries to repair his fucking lungs. And from then on, obviously he fucking hated school. The staff was like completely
But
not
he didn't
helping.
die?
No, he lived, but like after that he had to go back to class, and the guy that stabbed him was still his classmate after that. And the staff like didn't help him at all, and he was like having anxiety attacks every time he come into school. And so instead of going to school, he would just sneak to the subway system. And each morning, Darius would leave his home pretending to his parents that he was headed to school, but in reality, he went straight to the subway. Darius would find solace in the MTA rail yard, the Metropolitan Transit Authority. It's basically the New York City transit system. He would tell anyone who questioned his constant presence in the subway that he was a family member of an employee. And but the thing is, the MTA employees fucking loved him. He would volunteer. He would literally sweep the trains, clean their work areas, get them food.
And he loved it.
Yeah, he fucking loved it. Help them with whatever shit they needed around the area.
Free labor.
Yeah, exactly. His mom would often go to the rail yard herself and beg the workers to send him back to school, but it was to no avail. Darius had found a safe haven.
That's fucking funny.
Yeah.
At least he was in a safe place. I mean, like, obviously the school is no longer a safe place for him.
Absolutely, yeah. The school fucking failed him. And, like, these train workers, these fucking salts of the earth people seem to be the only people actually willing to, like, treat him like a fucking human being. Am I wrong?
Yeah, how old is he now?
At this time, I think he's, like, 15. Yeah.
Hopefully he becomes, like, a conductor, dude. That'd be lit.
Basically, Darius became such a good helper that he would basically do the jobs of the MTA employees, allowing the employees to just be absent, and Darius would just do their job for them. He became so good that the employees quickly taught Darius how to move the subway trains in and out of the yard. And at 13, he was operating subway trains on a daily basis for free.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Like, all right, kid. Listen, you gotta pull this train out. I'm gonna go get a smoke real quick. You got this, right?
He's like 13. He's literally 13 years old.
And he's like, yeah, you're.
Bro,
like,
I didn't know my ass from my fucking forehead at 13. Let alone like move a train.
And he's like, all right, no problem, boss. Fucking.
Yeah, and he just threw it in
no
reverse.
pay, dude. Dude, where's the labor union? Fuck.
Honestly, help this man. Okay, so he was manning the controls of subway trains, literally on scheduled routes with passengers aboard. Like, he was just running the fucking routes. But in 1980, at the age of 15, Darius was arrested when he drove an in-service New York City subway E-train. Darius was covering an MTA employee's shift so that an employee could visit his girlfriend. A passenger grew concerned when she saw Darius sitting alone in an operator's cab.
What the fuck?
The train was stopped and Darius was arrested.
Wait, you said 1980?
Yes, in 1980, at the age of 15.
Wait, he was 15?
Yeah.
So wait, how old is he now?
I think he's like 50-something, 57, something
I
like
thought you
that.
said he was 15 now.
No, he's 15 in 1980. So that's when he was arrested for. So basically, this woman saw him, and she like did a Karen, let me speak to your manager, called the fucking police and said there's like a black kid, there's a 15-year-old black kid manning the trains. And they came and arrested him.
I'd be scared too if like I saw a kid, like the only person out there running the train. I mean, I wouldn't know if they were like a savant, like genius.
I mean, true, but why you gotta snitch? Just get off the train, bitch.
That is crazy though. Like, he covered the guy like the whole shift, or like an hour. Like you got like I'll let you like man this train ride, or
Yeah.
like that is insane. Like
Yeah.
I get like it's like help the kid out. Like the kid's obviously low trained. Like watch him like do shit, but like
Bro,
let him take over your entire shift.
yeah, bro, and he's a real one too because through all of the police's questioning, Darius never ratted out the guy that he was covering for. Right? At 15, dude. Fucking shit,
Like,
dude.
don't tell nobody.
He's so fucking. He's so
Or he probably just did it
solidarity. It's insane.
That is insane.
Yeah, that is crazy. As a result of the arrest, Darius was adjudicated as a felon. His dream of becoming an employee for the MTA has come to an end because for a short period, Darius returned to school, but it did not last long. The school identified Darius as a truant, and his failure to reform resulted in his confinement in a mental hospital.
Oh, that's totally fucked.
Yeah, it's there that Darius is given heavy doses of antipsychotic medications that left him drooling in the corner. He was diagnosed with severe depression and psychosis. His year-long hospitalization ended when his parents learned that Darius was being brutally sexually assaulted in the facility.
You fucking serious, dude? This guy's life, man. Fuck.
Yeah, and this is at like 15.
Because like those like like those psych wards, like they just sedate the fuck out their patients.
Yeah, they're not
Like,
even humans. They're like zombies.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's horrible.
Within days of his release from the hospital, Darius returned to the subway. He's returning to his home, dude. His MTA friends were so pleased that he had not revealed their complicit activity that they welcomed him back into the fold.
Dude, I would too, dude.
They're so happy that he didn't rat him out, dude. That's insane. How did he have the presence of mind?
One guy was worried, like his like friend rings him up. He's like, bro.
Yeah, he's like, bro, Darius went down.
And he's like, oh shit, I'm gonna lose my job. Fuck.
That's insane.
Then like the next week he doesn't hear anything about it. He's like, fuck yes.
I got away with it.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't like go to the psych ward and bust him out, bro.
Yeah, they should have, man. Solidarity for that shit, bro. But yeah, so like while he was in the mental hospital, he kind of like grew up to be a man. So now he's big enough to learn how to drive a bus. So Darius quickly became the unofficial operator of the buses that were in need of washing. He was soon operating the scheduled routes. They literally
the public bus, like
yes, he was running the public routes. He was literally just driving like a regular conductor. Like after a year-long imprisonment in a mental facility, he came back. They let him back in, and they put him on a goddamn route.
He's like, all right, bro. What sucks too is probably because like the workers are benefiting off him. Like,
yeah, he's not getting paid,
and like they're getting paid for it despite them doing nothing.
Yeah,
and they're probably taking turns. Is like, all right, listen, you're gonna do my train shift, and then you're gonna do my buddy's bus shift. All right.
Yeah, I mean it is fucked up, but it's cute that he wants to do it. But yeah, they are taking fucking
if
advantage
he does
of
want
it.
to do, that's insane. That's cool.
He loves it, but it's still fucked up. His return to the transit world was a violation of his probation, and he was arrested and sent to jail again. His incarceration was followed by another commitment to a mental facility with no diagnosis and no viable treatment.
They're like, oh man, you're on the transit shit again? Alright, that's it. And they get out the cuffs.
Yeah, they literally just arrest him. Yeah, and basically after that he just goes in and out of jail for like the next 10 years. And then in 1989 he gets diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. But he never received any treatment because there was no treatment for people with Asperger's that have been incarcerated because they're not like, I guess they're not human beings. They don't deserve fucking treatment, I guess. But yeah.
When did they stop doing like lobotomies and stuff like that?
When did they?
Yeah.
I think it was in like the 1930s.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, I bet you like if he was living that time they would have lobotomized
Oh
him.
hell yeah, of course. They would have just fucking lobotomized him and he would have been a zombie. Yeah, so basically, so ever since then, he's literally been sitting in jail. You want to know the most disgusting fucking thing of this entire thing that made me want to fucking throw up, dude? After 9/11, Darius, this is in 2001. He has been sitting in jail since 1989. And so after 2001, after sitting in jail for that long, he volunteered his knowledge to make the New York City subway system safe. Darius led a team of federal agents, New York City intelligence detectives, and New York State police through the subway system, identifying locations where intruders were able to enter without being detected. Darius was actually still incarcerated at the time. He was taken in shackles from his prison cell at Rikers Island by a team of federal agents to tour the subway system, assisting law enforcement with their efforts. For his contribution, Darius received no benefit. Instead, the Department of Corrections was notified that Darius was easily manipulated and a terrorist could gain valuable knowledge from him, and as a result, he was placed into solitary confinement.
What the fuck, dude? That's just so fucked up, dude.
Yeah.
Like someone's at the police station. You're like, I know this kid who has like hyper autism, and it's like every like bus station around. He probably knows like where terrorists could like get in without alerting anybody.
Yeah.
And then they got the guy, and then they threw him in solitary confinement.
Yeah,
like,
they get his information.
No lesser sense. Like, you know what? Let's add an extra 5 years.
Yeah, and that's after he literally went down and led a fucking team of experts through and showed them where the shit was. And then as a result, he goes into fucking solitary. That shit made me sick. I fucking would spit on these fucking swine if they were in my fucking room right now. I swear to God. These people are fucking scum for doing that to him.
Yeah. Solitary confinement is so fucking inhumane.
Honestly, let alone on a person with a fucking mental illness that needs fucking medical treatment. Yes, exactly. Depression as a result of his fucking scenario, I would assume, because of how much this country has failed him. Holy shit. And he's been sitting in jail. And he got out, I don't remember when, but it was in like the middle 2000s. But in 2015, he was arrested again for taking a Greyhound bus for a joyride through New York City. There was a video captured of it. He
stole it? Or like someone let him ride in it, or like what?
No, he just drove it throughout New York City.
Like how do you obtain this bus? Like a bus driver just like left the keys.
Yeah, I guess he just walked in and stole it.
He's like stalking like these Greyhound buses. He's like, all right, which idiot left the keys in?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and like so basically after that, the judge said that because of his past legal history that like he was never gonna get out, so he sentenced him, and he was just sitting in prison. And
to this day,
he was sitting in prison until unfortunately I have to say that this story does not have as happy of an ending as the Rodney Reed ending, because in 2018 Darius accepted a plea deal to be sent to a mental asylum for indefinitely, and he is still there to this day.
That is so fucked up. Like, so it's either spend the rest of your life in prison or spend the rest of your life in a ward.
Yep, that was the choice that the judge gave him, and he chose the asylum.
That is so fucking insane, dude.
Yeah. And with that
so sad.
Our story of the Savant syndrome comes to an end, so Pilot, do you have any things to say?
You're giving me depression for tonight. I'm gonna cry later.
No problem, man.
Thanks for now I have more knowledge.
No problem.
Maybe I might make myself a savant. Who knows?
Maybe I might cut my brain. Who knows?
But I like what we did here. The research, it was really good.
Yeah, I liked it. Thank you guys for watching.
Can't wait for my episode.
Yeah, I hope it's at least twice as good as this.
All right, thank you for watching Left in the South podcast. I'm your co-host, David.
I'm Caleb.
And good night.
Hey guys, it's Caleb here. Thanks for listening to our first mystery podcast. I hope you liked it. So for this format, we're going to be trying a bunch of different things, so don't be surprised if things change. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. A majority of the content for this particular piece came from one journal, a link to which will be in the description of this podcast, as well as the website freedariusnow.com. And also at freedariusnow.com you can learn more information about some GoFundMe and other things you can do to help Darius out. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.